Thank you, Bruno. Good evening, everyone, on this Valentine's Day evening. And just before I recite the prayer that we have from the Vatican News today, Bishop Emmanuel Adetoyeze Badejo from the Diocese of Oyo, Nigeria, says that all who celebrate Valentine's Day should really become agents of authentic, life-giving love in all forms. If Valentine's Day is about showing and spreading true love, then we all need it. Children, youth, adults, the elderly, all need love. Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. God of love, you have loved us from before our first breath. It is you who taught us how to love. You gave up your only Son for us as a sign of your love. It is you who tenderly watches over your creation. It is you who will eternally love us beyond the grave. Thank you, Lord, for your everlasting love. You call us to work in your fields, to sow the seeds of your love. May we answer this call with humility, trust, and joy. And may we always know that you are working with us. May we always know your comfort and support. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Deacon. David, the land acknowledgement, I didn't see it in the agenda, unless I missed it.
Sorry, Bruno, it's not there.
Okay. Do you have, if you have it, can you read it off, please?
We'd like to acknowledge that this is the sacred territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and we thank them for being stewards of this land.
Thank you. The approval of the agenda, moved by Paula D'Amato Giovinazzi. Any opposed? Carried. No calendar items. Any declaration of interest? None. Minutes of the Faith and Program of January 24th.
I'll move, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by moved by Trustee Stefano Pascucci. Any questions? Any opposed? Carried. No pastor's remarks. No declarative approval. Okay, no pastor's remarks, no awards and presentations, no delegations. Updates and information. Trustee Del Rosario, Ontario Catholic School Trustee Association report. You have any?
Not tonight, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any of my colleagues have any good news items? Seeing none. No information, reports for committee for receipts. David, the first order of business, if I could add before you go into G1, that both G1 and G2 are posted on the Dufferin Peel website. David, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. G1 is the St. Francis of Assisi Care for Creation Resource Kit, and I will pass over the presentation to Deacon Ray Frendom.
Through the chair, good evening. Actually, I'll start off and then we'll pass it over into the very good hands of Deacon Ray. The report is on page 11 of your agenda. And the program department is very pleased to be providing each of our schools with a resource kit inspired by the life and work of St. Francis. This promotes our multi-year strategic plan, our Catholic Board Improvement Learning Cycle goals, and our eco-school initiatives. Lessons and activities that are faith-centered and cross-curricular, focusing on stewardship of the environment, have been designed by a variety of teachers and chaplains. And Deacon Ray will now provide you with more details about the work that we have put into this exciting kit that we will be sharing with the system.
Thank you, Superintendent Murphy. Let me just share my screen. So through the chair, in alignment with Pope Francis's urgent appeal to us to create a new dialogue about how we are shaping the future of our planet, the program department, as Carmel Murphy mentioned, will provide each school with a resource kit that is inspired by St. Francis of Assisi and his love and care for creation. The St. Francis of Assisi Care for Creation Resource Kit was actually inspired by this beautifully hand-carved, see if I can show you here, this beautiful hand-carved, about a foot or so in height, which is hand-carved out of olive wood from Bethlehem. The kit will include resources to promote the board's multi-year strategic learning plan, improvement plan, and eco schools initiatives. The lessons and activities are faith-centered, cross-curricular, and make connections to the encyclical from Pope Francis Laudato Si, Catholic Social Teaching, and the Ontario Catholic School Graduate Expectations. So in the elementary kit, the resources were chosen to highlight St. Francis' deep spiritual connection to all living things. And you can find the list, as you can see also on the screen. A list of these resources are on page 12 of this evening's report. The secondary kit will inspire the opportunity for schools to connect with their parishes through chaplaincy and eco schools initiatives. We thought this would be a great idea of making those parish, school, and school council connections and parents as well. The resources also provide schools with ideas to lead outdoor education retreats and a prayerful liturgy as well. The resource kits are accompanied by lesson plans, slide decks, prayers, and learning opportunities developed by, as Superintendent Murphy mentioned, by a team of educators and chaplaincy leaders. And that's the end of the presentation. Are there any questions? I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Deacon Ray. Any questions from my colleagues? Seeing none. Thank you, Deacon Ray. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
David, next order of business. You're on mute, David.
You'd think I would be able to not do that after a while. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. We move on to item G2, which is implementing the updated science curriculum in Dufferin Peel. And Superintendent Murphy and the team will present the report, but I'm going to pass it on, I believe, now to Principal Dulcie Belcher.
Thank you. Through Chair, good evening. Tonight, I am joined by Lisa Buchek, who's the Coordinator of Technology and Enabled Learning, Eva Bruni, who's the Science Consultant for 7 to 12, and Michael Condata, who is our STEM Consultant K to 12. In September of 2022, all science and technology programs for grade 1 to 9 received new curriculum expectations as outlined in the new Ministry Science Curriculum Policy. With the current advancements in science, it is important that the education system supports learning that is relevant and up to date. The focus of the updated science and technology curriculum is for students to acquire and develop the knowledge and transferable skills to thrive in a changing world. Tonight, we're going to share with you how the program department has supported the implementation of the updated science curriculum in Dufferin Peel. And now I'm going to turn it to Lisa.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us, and happy Valentine's Day. Hopefully this mic, it's a new mic I'm trying, so you can hear me, I hope. Yes, awesome, thank you. Okay, so as Dulcie mentioned, tonight we will share a timeline outlining the resources and professional learning that we've developed for educators and students in Dufferin Peel to help facilitate the implementation of the updated curriculum. And we're going to begin by just highlighting some key changes that came with this new update. So some of the key changes that were implemented in both the elementary and the secondary curriculum were all around STEM. So I'm sure you're mostly familiar, but STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And what the updated science curriculum has done is it now includes a strand A, which is focused on the development of STEM skills and connections. And what's great is that strand A now includes expectations around coding, as well as the engineering design process, which are really important additions because they're pivotal in providing our students with the skills they need to cope with the advancements in science and technologies. Another addition was the inclusion of culturally responsive and relevant pedagogy. And what this is a framework that supports students in seeing themselves reflected in the curriculum, including their racial, cultural, and social identities. The new curriculum also has some new expectations, both in the elementary and secondary, and these complement each other to help provide continuity and a smooth transition from elementary to secondary programs, which helps to prepare our students for deeper levels of science and technology learning as they move into secondary school and beyond. And then lastly, we wanted to just talk about the fact that the grade 9 curriculum is now a de-streamed course. So it has now replaced grade 9 applied science and grade 9 academic science. Since data has shown that streaming prolongs the systemic inequities in the education system, the government has shifted to a new de-streamed curriculum for grade 9 courses. This started with math last year and now includes science this year. De-streaming aims to break down some of these systemic barriers so that every student has an equal opportunity to thrive, to excel, and to reach their full potential. Next, we're going to, on our timeline, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the key strategies that we have implemented to support the de-streamed curriculum. We began our de-streaming support for grade 9 in April of 2022. And what we did is we started with a presentation that we created unpacking the what and why of de-streaming, because it's really important for educators to understand why are we doing this and why has the ministry implemented a de-streamed curriculum. And this was shared with the subject council, the science subject council at their monthly meeting. And then in May of 2022, we created a video that was provided to support all educators in the board that focused on the rationale behind de-streaming, some of the benefits and the strategies to support a de-streamed classroom. We then started to focus RPD on the how. So we felt once teachers understood the what and the why, we wanted to show them how and support them with resources. So we created specific resources to help grade 9 teachers support the diverse learners in a de-streamed classroom, including resources that were designed around key best practices. So they were designed around universal design for learning, around culturally responsive pedagogy, around differentiated instruction, and of course, the importance of knowing the student in front of you or knowing the learner. All of the resources that we created included scaffolds to help students access the learning, as well as ways to create an equitable and inclusive space in the science classroom. And then the last piece of this component was, as grade 9 de-streamed science is a new course, it was also necessary for us to reevaluate the term category weightings and final 30% evaluation and assess whether they aligned with the rationale behind de-streaming, such as celebrating the diversity of learners, holding high expectations, and providing fair access to learning for all students. We conducted a survey with all secondary science educators to gather teacher voice, and then we formed a review committee made up of secondary educators and program staff, and we analyzed that data and then provided input to determine the new category weightings and evaluations. So now in the new grade 9 de-streamed science curriculum, the 4 category weightings for grade 9 science are now assessed equally at 25% each, and the final evaluation is divided up 15% for the final exam and 15% for the CPT.
All right, thanks, Lisa. In addition to all the key strategies that we talked about and unpacking the new science curriculum, we also created additional support resources for our educators, both in secondary and in elementary. So with the creation of these resources to support the introduction of these 2 new curriculums, we needed a location to house it all. So we updated our science SharePoint in July of 2022. And we were able to house our science resources, unpacking both the new elementary and secondary science curriculums here, which we released in August of 2022 to help teachers familiarize themselves with the changes and updates to the curriculum. These resources also highlight another key changes, curriculum goals, cross-strand connections, as well as directing teachers to the ministry documents that they could find and dive into a little bit deeper. In addition to these resources, we also created professional learning videos to unpack the new elementary science curriculum, which was shared with all elementary staff on the October PD Day.
So the Program and Learning Services Department worked in collaboration with educators and other departments in Dufferin Peel to create resources that support teacher instruction and student learning. In collaboration with grade 9 science teachers, we created lesson plans for diverse learners, one for each unit: biology, chemistry, physics, and earth and space. And modeled in all these lesson plans are strategies that support the universal design for learning framework. The lessons are ready to use with student handouts, teacher solutions, cross-strand connections, lesson tips and extensions, and student exemplars. For inquiry, we were lucky last summer to work with a writing team of secondary teachers to create an enriching, culminating performance task. In this project, students plan, design, and conduct their own plant experiment to address a real world problem using the scientific experimentation process. And finally, the program department collaborated with the equity department to create lessons on Indigenous knowledge systems and the impacts of climate change and emerging technologies on Indigenous communities. The resources support teachers in incorporating these new grade 9 curriculum expectations into their classroom.
We also created resources to support the inclusion of STEM skills and connections in the science curriculum. So in grade 9, the lessons provide opportunities for teachers to interweave the scientific and engineering design processes. So to support the engineering design process, we created an activity where students designed, built, and tested a lunar lander. To support the experimentation process, our activity was inquiry-based, where students simulated a meteor hitting the surface of the moon and what effect changing certain variables such as height will have on the appearance and impact of the crater. And to support the research process, we created an activity that was a choice board activity where students could choose a topic of their interest related to space exploration and dive in a little bit deeper with it. For elementary, we created a self-directed coding and robotics module to support grade 6 educators with their implementation of the Sphero Bolt robot in their classrooms. And teachers who completed the module received a robotics kit, as you can see here in the picture. It included 5 Sphero Bolts, a charging hub, some compasses, a sticker pack, and an activity roadmap. And the activity roadmap included 3 cross-stranded coding lessons that model how to integrate STEM skills as outlined in the curriculum into learning experiences for their students. So these coding lessons span from teaching students to code Sphero to create a regular polygon using angles and graph data that the Sphero can plot. That would be one, and all the way over to learning about food webs and the importance of biodiversity in an ecosystem, where Sphero could then model the transfer of energy in that food web.
So next, we'll talk about the professional development. So the program department offered in-person professional development sessions in November and December of this year to support grade 9 science teachers. Science educators learned the basics of coding and how to incorporate the coding into the new grade 9 expectations by using Scratch programming language and a pocket-sized computer called a microbit. Educators learned to create 2 coding programs, an interactive circuit and an automated irrigation pump intended for indoor farming. Teachers also received a school kit that included 6 climate change kits and 6 microbits ready to use with their students. Grade 9 science teachers also had the opportunity to participate in a 2-day professional learning PD facilitated by the program department and the equity department. Learning from guest speakers Isaac Murdoch, an Indigenous knowledge keeper from Serpent River First Nation, and Daniela Scalice, an astrobiologist from NASA, teachers explored how Indigenous and Western knowledge systems can actually work in tandem to enhance current understandings of science. The educators explored ready-to-use resources and pedagogical practices to support the new curriculum that includes expectations on Indigenous knowledges and ways of knowing. The DP Tech team is also providing in-school support to grades 1 to 9 science educators and students. 1 secondary school and 2 elementary schools per month will work with program consultants to co-plan and co-teach lessons to support differentiated instruction, Indigenous knowledges, new science content, and coding and STEM integration.
All right, to give you a little bit more of an insight into what we've done, we created a short little video to show our implementation of the updated curriculum in action. So here we go.
And we will finish the report tonight with our next steps. As we move into 2023, the Program and Learning Services Department will continue to provide professional learning opportunities, resource support, and in-school support to science educators in Dufferin Peel. The team will offer 3 additional professional development sessions for grade 9 de-streamed educators in semester 2, with a focus on integrating strand A effectively into the updated curriculum. We will also facilitate follow-up sessions both virtually and in person. The DP Tech team is also launching a self-directed microbit module for grade 7 educators, where upon completion, they will receive a set of 15 microbits for their school and an inquiry project integrating STEM skills and modeling the scientific experimentation process. We will also continue to work with other stakeholders like Nelson, Let's Talk Science, and Green Learning, and they will provide additional support and enriching experiences to teachers and students. The team will also continue to promote ministry resources created and shared through SciTech Ontario, including lesson plans for each grade, long-range plans, coding, and webinars for teachers. In-school support in K to 9 will also continue for the duration of the school year. Lastly, the tech team will be launching Ozobots, a coding and robotics tool to support grade 2 educators in integrating Strand A STEM, and coding into the curriculum. This concludes our report, and we will be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolce. Thank you, Eva. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Michael. Colleagues, do you have any questions of this wonderful presentation? Mario, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We still have the time where we still have the situation where students or parents come on open house and what have you to schools, and some they're encouraged to buy books for the students and what have you. Is there any way we can encourage the schools or the manufacturers or whatever to put something together so that parents could not necessarily buy an entire science kit, but add to a science kit that can stay within the classroom or the school? In other words, it's a different version of books for the school or for the library. It actually helps because these things can be expensive. And just the question I have to ask, is there any way we can sort of ride this enthusiasm for STEM, basically?
Through the chair, we do have a policy that the board is to provide all learning materials for students free of charge.
Right.
So we wouldn't be asking parents to purchase any materials for their child's learning.
Well, I realize that through you, Mr. Chairman. What I'm thinking about is that, sometimes they encourage parents to contribute to the library. And so this is just a different form. It's not a library per se. It's a science experiment. I think this thing's great. I think it's fantastic. There's no question about that. And we're light years ahead on many fronts. But just wondering if there's any way we can do this, because and I don't want it as an indirect form of taxation. And the fact is that we're building more so the more students could work with together. There's, instead of groups of 8, it could be groups of 6, which means you need more. And of course, budgets are always tight. So through you, Mr. Chairman, David, what do you think, David?
So through the chair, thank you, Trustee Piscucci. We can take that back and think about it.
Yeah, I just an idea. If you can respond back at next meeting in a verbal format, be appreciated.
Yep.
And that's it. Let me ask a second question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Mario.
When you see something like this, how and what the ministry gave you gave us the mandate and we moved it forward. What's the period of time from when the mandate came to where we are today? How much time have we contributed into that in general terms, like a half a year, full year? How long?
Through the chair, I would say 1 semester.
1 semester. I believe, and this is something that was an initiative by the education ministry, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Obviously. And so the question I'd ask through you, Mr. Chairman, is should the ministry know how long it takes and give us a reasonable amount of time to turn it around, seeing that we are so full with any other initiatives and we have our own day-to-day operations to worry about? Through you, Mr. Chairman, to David, is there a possibility of maybe mentioning this to the ministry in some format, not as a negative, but saying, hey, listen, if you want to put something forward like this, great idea, but give us a little bit more time?
Through the chair, at the local meetings that staff have with the ministry and regional meetings as well, I know that advocacy for appropriate timelines and some time in order to implement, along with the appropriate professional development, is always brought up.
Right. Okay, good. So when's the initiative on this last question, Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yep, go ahead, Mario.
Thank you. When would this go out, like in full format, et cetera? You're looking at September?
Through the chair, we will continue its implementation through semester 2 with the professional development that has been articulated by the team.
Right.
I would say we're going to be much better by September 2023, and we'll have our ducks in a row, and teachers will be familiar with the de-streamed curriculum vis-a-vis the support that they've received from the Program and Learning Services Department.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, I want to say thank you to the staff putting this incredible presentation together. Appreciate it. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Mario.
Thank you, Bruno.
Any other questions? I don't see any in the chat. Don't see any hands. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. David, next order of business.
Mr. Chairman, you have Luz there.
Oh, Luz, my apologies.
Her voice is off there.
Well, yeah, she's muted.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry.
Go ahead.
That was intentional, Luz.
I know. Okay. Through Mr. Chair, to David, we've started the implementation of this, the streaming and the STEM and all that. Can you tell us how it's coming along? How are the teachers accepting it and kind of bringing it to the kids? What's the what's the output or the reaction from everybody? I know everything is new, but you have planned on all of this. So I just want to find out how it's been going on. How's the implementation coming along?
So thank you, Trustee Del Rosario, and through you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps I can start and then Superintendent Murphy can offer a brief commentary on that. Like anything, change is sometimes hard and difficult. However, with the ministry's vision of de-streaming all of the grade 9 curriculum, I think that our educators are becoming more adept with the strategies that are really cross-curricular that can be used when we are instructing in a de-streamed course. And so I think there's obviously a lot of excitement with some of the initiatives that are out there and the involvement of STEM in this. But perhaps Superintendent Murphy can just provide a very brief commentary in terms of anecdotally what we're finding.
Through the chair, thank you. I think that change is very challenging for our teachers. However, what I have to say with great respect for the teachers of Dufferin Peel is the fact that they are clamoring for support, that we fill our workshops, that our virtual workshops are oversubscribed, that my consultants and my coordinator are extremely strong advocates for the need for our teachers to get together. As a matter of fact, because of their work and their advocacy, we've doubled the number of sessions that we've been able to bring our grade 9 science teachers to. And I see them smirking about the fact that they're probably going to be after another session, and my job through the leadership of our associate directors to find the money to make that happen. So in spite of the short timelines from the ministry, in spite of the number of challenges we have with publishers and suppliers providing us with reasonably priced, up-to-date materials that reflect the changes in the curriculum, I have to say with great admiration, our staff is rising to the occasion and providing exciting changes for our students. De-streaming comes with a number of challenges in terms of mindsets, and I think our staff is working extremely hard to ensure that our students are given the best education. And having been married to a science teacher for many years, I have had it drilled into me the importance of science and technology, and I'm very proud of our teachers and our team in terms of navigating this change.
Thank you, Superintendent Murphy. I am really very glad to hear that. And seeing the pictures that were shown, it really showed the interest from our educators and how excited they look while they're doing some of those tests. So I'm really very proud to see that. And I really thank you and your team, Lisa, Eva, and there's another one, Michael, for preparing this report. It's a great report and great information for us trustees and something that we can share with our parent communities. And, you know, I'm so proud of our teachers, and they're happy to learn and happy to share it with our students. So just want to thank you for all the report. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Luz. Seeing no other questions. David, next order of business.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, we now move on to G3, which is contact sports and Dufferin Peel. That's found on page 16 of your agenda package. And as a result of a request from a trustee at the January 31st, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, and as related to 6 delegations that were received related to concerns regarding violent sports, the report before you will provide an overview of contact sports in Dufferin Peel as related to risk management, compliance with ministry and other policy and procedure, and response to emerging research regarding the impact of contact sports. So I'll now turn it over to Superintendent Chiliano, who's part of the team that will be presenting the report this evening.
Good evening, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. Through the chair, I'll provide some context in relation to football and rugby in our board. During this 22-23 school year, Dufferin Peel currently has 8 active football teams and 9 active rugby teams in total. Further, from September 2022 to February 8th, 2023, there were 13 suspected concussions in football and 10 suspected concussions in rugby reported on the Ontario School Board Insurance Exchange, which we commonly refer to as OSB. On page 17, trustees can see data charts which indicate concussion data recently received by OSB. These are organized by sport and by occurrence. Lastly, at a prior meeting, it was requested if any students have passed away playing football or rugby in any of our schools, I refer trustees to a paragraph at the top of page 18 for specifics in relation to this inquiry. At this time, I will turn over to Superintendent Brenton, who will discuss ministry compliance. Thank you.
Thank you and good evening, everybody. And continuing to the chair, I'd just like to set some context, just specifically with regards to compliance. The Dufferin-Peel Catholic District School Board has a concussion policy and protocol that are compliant with the direction from the Ministry of Education, specifically to OFIA and OSBE, OFIA being the Ontario Physical and Health Education Association, which is the guideline for athletics and extracurricular in school boards across the province. As we can remember, in January of 2020, the Ministry of Education updated its PPM 158 titled School Board Policy on Concussions, in that all school boards across Ontario were obligated to have protocol for concussion safety that includes the following: an annual review by participants in board-sponsored inter-school sports of concussion awareness, resources, and concussion codes of conduct, with attestations of such, and there's a link for trustees that can be found that links them to the provincial guidelines for concussion resources. An annual concussion training for all relevant school staff. In this particular case, we're looking at coaching. A process for the removal of students with a suspected concussion from physical activity. In this specific case, we're talking about students involved in sports, but also students who do suffer head injuries at school during regular school hours. A concussion protocol must be put into place. And as well, a return to school plan, such as return to learning, such as in the classroom, and return to physical activities, such as physical education class, recess for some students, and reintegration into participation of sports for those who are diagnosed with concussion, including graduation steps and tracking of the progress of the student. Each of all of these requirements have been implemented by staff. The removal of students from sports, as well as the return to school plan, conform to the process, content, and the roles and responsibilities as recommended by OFIA. Furthermore, provisions to ensure safety, including a helmet and equipment certification from a third-party agency, safe blocking and tackling techniques, length of time between games, and the procedures and rules for fun, safe play, which are all aligned with the OFIA requirements, continue to be a priority for our students and for this board. I'll take just a few minutes or 1 minute or two just to talk specifically about football and the process of what it takes to establish a football team before students and coaching staff take the field in the beginning of the season. Prior to any season beginning, coaching staff and head coaches especially must complete a national coaching training, which is mandated by OFSA, which, as we know, is the Ontario Federation for Secondary School Athletic Associations, and as well as enforced by ROPSA and through OFIA. This is through the National Coaching Certificate Program. It's called the NCCP program, and no coaching staff may be able to coach a team until they are certified in these programs, which also establishes concussion awareness and training, which also established a hitting clinic for coaches in order to conduct hitting clinics for students and players. As before the season starts, no student is able to take the field without proper training and proper participation in the hitting clinics. As well as that, parents and students have to also sign off an attestation initializing that they understand the concussion awareness and concussion protocol, and obviously the components of the sport specifically to football. And of course, the certification of equipment is also critical, especially particular sports such as football. All equipment, and now I'll speak specifically to the helmets of all of our football teams, they are certified through a third party, and once the third party initiates that protocol, they get awarded a sticker on the helmet. And that third party is through OFSA again, in which all football teams within the province goes through the National Operating Committee on Standards of Athletic Equipment. And that is shipped out to this third party. And I believe the last location of the third party, as is various locations, was in Pennsylvania in the US. It is a lengthy process to put a football program together, but these OFIA guidelines under the authorization, of course, in partnerships of OFSA, are things that students and coaches must abide by before a football season starts. I'll now hand over the rest of the remaining of the presentation to Dr. Krishankite.
Good evening, and through the chair, I'm going to speak briefly about some emerging areas of research. Research into the diagnosis and treatment of brain injuries in youth sports is ongoing, and the understanding among healthcare providers and scientists changes rapidly. As you know, staff of Dufferin Peel are not neurologists or medical scientists, and as a result are not in the position to determine which research gives the right answer. So we rely on expert panels from the medical community to synthesize the research and provide position statements with recommendations. We check regularly for updates to such position statements and follow recommendations for injury prevention from associations like Parachute Canada, ensure compliance with Canadian guidelines for concussion in sport, PPM documents from the Ministry of Education, and protocols from OFIA. Here's what we understand today about chronic traumatic encephalopathy. CTE is a brain disease that can only be diagnosed after death. It's thought to be the result of both concussive symptoms and subconcussive head impacts, such as bumps or blows or jolts to the head, which, unlike concussion, do not cause symptoms. Studies of CTE have focused on the brains of a small group of people after death, such as professional football players, from which high rates of CTE have been reported. Research has not addressed the possibility that biological, environmental, or lifestyle factors could also contribute to the brain changes found in people with CTE. To date, epidemiological studies of children and youth who participate in contact and collision sports have not identified long-term neurological or psychiatric consequences. And this is per the recent position statement from January 2023 of the Canadian Pediatric Society. Importantly, CTE is not mentioned in the updated concussion policy or resource documents from the Ministry of Education or OFIA. And now I turn the presentation back to Associate Director Emerald.
Thanks, Dr. Kite, and continuing through you, Mr. Chair. So this board remains compliant with all regulation and direction from the Ministry of Education, OFIA, and OSB with respect to offering contact sports in secondary schools. As trustees will recall, there was a motion at the meeting requesting that a letter to the Ministry of Education, CC to the Ontario Catholic School Trustees Association, requesting a ministry review of the emerging evidence and research on CTE, and to provide direction for school boards regarding preventative actions for contact sports in schools, has been sent by the chair of the Board of Trustees on behalf of all of trustees. Moving forward, staff is committed to review ongoing or any new or updated position statements and recommendations from expert medical panels, such as the Canadian Medical Association and the Canadian Pediatric Society. That concludes our report. Mr. Chair, we'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you, David. Just as an FYI to my colleagues, that letter that David spoke of was sent out to trustees, so you would have it in your inbox. Questions, Trustee D'Amato Giovanozzi? Go ahead, Paula, please.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the presentation. Thank you for all the information. And through the chair, I'd like to say that I have done my own study on the brain, and I know that these sports are quite dangerous. You know, with the numbers that you're reporting, it seems to be a concussion a month, and we're pretty near, and that's quite serious. What I want to suggest is, or I want to, I don't even know how to do this, I'm new, but what I want to suggest is, you know, for the grade 8 students going into high school, can we not send them a survey and ask them, would you guys, I'll give you a choice. Would you like to do football, or would you like to play ping pong? Ping pong is the safest sport, and it's so healthy for your brain. And I just want to suggest that as a sport. It's not an expensive sport. You can set up a few tables in the gymnasium, and it could be very fun, and it's amazing for the brain. I have a book that I read about it. You know, if you give me some time, I can gather the information from scientists and doctors, and I can present that to the board if need be. But I think I'd like to consider asking the students if they would consider changing sports, and then perhaps we can have some schools that don't have some football teams or rugby teams. it's a suggestion that I want to put forward in order to protect the children. Thank you.
David?
Sorry, and through you, Mr. Chair, thank you for that, Trustee Demetto Giovinazzi. It's you'll be happy to know that when grade 8s attend secondary schools, we do offer them a variety of extracurricular activities and co-curricular activities. And I'm proud to say as well, in some of our secondary schools, not all, but some of our secondary schools, ping pong is very, very popular. And in fact, you can go to some secondary schools in our system and see students playing ping pong during the lunch hour just as a casual activity in the matrix or in other places in the school, and some elementary schools as well. So thank you for that suggestion, and we'll definitely take that back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none.
Mr. Chairman, one question.
Hold on.
Go to Corbett first.
Go ahead, Trustee Corbett.
Oh, thank you, and through the chair. Just my apologies on the delay. With the information that was provided for the 2022-2023 school year, so Dufferin Peel has active football sports, 2 junior football teams. So just looking at football, 2 junior football teams, 6 senior football teams. That's it.
Through the chair, that's correct.
So out of all of our secondary schools, I'm assuming it's just secondary. So has that changed? Like, has our number of football teams, I mean, I haven't even looked at rugby, but even just football, because I know that was one of the main concerns. Has that number of teams changed?
So through the chair, if I might offer some insight and just anecdotally, the extent to which training is required for our staff in order to be compliant with ministry direction and OFIA is huge. And so to run a football team at a school requires a lot of staff. It's not just one coach on the field, it's many different coaches who are certified. And so as a result, it's becoming not that we don't have staff that don't want to do it. That's not what I'm implying. But it is a burden in terms of compliance. And so I would say 10 years ago, when I became a superintendent of schools, football teams in our secondary schools were far more prolific than they are now. And who knows what 5 years from now is going to bring with respect to the incidence of football teams within our secondary schools.
So through the chair, maybe in issues and events, can staff just provide maybe what, obviously COVID has not helped this situation. I think there's been a change in the uptake of sports, not just school related, but even community related and whatnot in other leagues. But are staff able to give us an idea of the trends over, prior to COVID, just to have an idea comparative? Because I thought we had more football teams than we actually do. So that would be one. And then if these are what we currently have, is there a way to get some information in terms of, again, how many of these students that have participated in these sports have used that experience in terms of, scholarships to the States, gone on to play football professionally? I'm trying to get an idea of whether this is a recreational interest, at which point participation post-secondary drops off, or are we actually fueling professional sports in these school teams that we have? I would just, and I don't know what kind of data we're looking at in terms of that. I think that would be very informative in terms of, we have some sports specific schools that is their, that's one of their niche, and that attracts students to those schools for those reasons, but specifically football, probably rugby as well. Is that feasible, Associate Director?
Oh, thank you, Trustee Corbett. For sure. We have that data going back, I believe, 12 or 13 years from ROPSA. Perfect. In terms of Peel and Dufferin Peel. In terms of the scholarship piece, one thing that was not mentioned in the report is that within ROPSA and OFSA, there's even another subdivide in terms of junior and senior. There are tier 1 teams and tier 2 teams. And typically your tier 1 teams play at a higher competitive level than the tier 2 teams. In Dufferin Peel, we have 2 tier 2 teams. The rest are all tier 1.
So through the chair, you're saying of the 2 junior and the 6 senior teams, 2 of them are 2 tiers?
So of the 6 senior boys football team, 4 are tier 2 and 2 are tier 1.
Okay. Yeah, through the chair, if
Put
that
that in the teaching
information could
events, for
be
sure.
provided, that would be a good way to see what trends are happening. And obviously there's some pandemic related
For sure.
changes that have occurred too. Thank you, Mr.
With the
Chairman.
understanding through the chair that some of the data is going to be empirical in nature as well. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Mario Pascucci, did you have a question? Go ahead,
Yes,
please.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Actually, something stumbled across. So when Brea mentioned about these specific sports schools, their incident of concern, is it higher? In other words, do they suffer more? I should say more. The children, the students, do they get hurt more, or do they have different types of outcomes in schools that are sports oriented versus schools that are not sports oriented?
So thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, we haven't done that analysis yet. One would assume that the more incidence or proportion of sports that is provided at a school, the potential for more injury is there just because there's more sports being played.
Right.
However, we haven't done that analysis.
Is there not, Mr. Chairman, through you, is there a chance or an opportunity to look at it from that perspective and come back to us in about a year's time?
We can do that, yep. Or we can put something in issues and events as well.
Yeah, but I would like to maybe take a look at it and see where the anomalies are, where the incidences happen as well. I mean, recognizing, like you said, there's a number of students who do not play the game or games that are contact, but I would believe we should have a baseline to work from.
Through the chair, we can do that.
Okay, in about a year's time. Next question, Mr. Chairman. How do we survey students with what kind of sports that they want at their particular school or why they choose a specific school? How do we survey them currently? Or do we?
Through the chair, we don't survey them. We provide an opportunity for them to know what sports and extracurriculars are available at the school.
Okay. And then where does it go from there, Mr. Chairman?
So through the chair, then the student would choose the sport or the extracurricular activity with which they're interested, because all of those things are dependent upon our staff giving generously of their own time in order to provide opportunities for the students.
And I applaud staff for doing that, and I thank them. But the next question, as we uncover this situation here, they're not solicited or given information if they don't choose early. The student then maybe wants to go into a sport like football. And the question I have to ask is this: are they told at that time as a student, not just to the parent eventually, but as a student, the concerns that they're out there? Is it communicated in some way, fashion, that they in fact have something to hold on to that can say, okay, fine, I've been told?
Through the chair, the student has to attest to.
Yeah, I recognize the decision is made by the parent.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Chair, there's a considerable risk management element of this as well. And so part of that is an attestation, and the parent also is required to complete an element of risk form of which all of the risk factors are identified clearly.
And how, if I may, Mr. Chairman, one more question. How do we, thank you. How can we minimize the bravado if they go out and say, I'm going to try out for the football team and I'm going to play really hard so I can get on the team, and in fact they do potential damage to themselves or somebody else?
Through the chair, our coaches are trained to provide as safe an experience for our students as possible, which is the requirement of the ministry, which is the requirement of OFIA, and which is the requirement of OSBI as well.
Through Mr. Chairman, I lied to you. There's one more question, if I may, to follow up on that question.
Go ahead, Mario.
Thank you. And so there's a principal, not principal, there's a staff or whoever's running the game, whatever game it is, be it football or ping pong. Do they in fact say, hey, listen, Mario, just calm it down a bit? I mean, just you're getting too hyper.
Through the chair, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So what do we have coming back in about a year's time? We have some kind of report based on.
We can make it part of the risk management report that comes back to administration and finance yearly as a calendar item.
I think that's a great item.
And include some of that.
And when's that planning to be out? Do you know?
Well, I don't know if we'd be in time for the one that's coming in March or April. I believe typically it comes. But perhaps next year we can include a little bit more on head injuries as relayed to OSB.
Well, I think so, because you'd have to collect the data. Mr.
Correct.
Chairman, thank you very much, and thank you for bringing this forward. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mario. Any other questions? Seeing none. David, next order of business, please.
Thanks. And continuing through you, Mr. Chair, we move on to item number H, which requires trustee approval. And so H1 is the 2023-2024 school year calendar, and Superintendent Peel is going to be presenting that report.
Superintendent, please.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Through the chair, the school year calendar report begins on page 20 of your agenda package this evening. As you're aware, the Dufferin Peel School Year Calendar Committee is comprised of representative from this Board of Trustees, parent representatives, elementary and secondary from our CSAC committee, as well as elementary and secondary representatives from both our Teachers Association and our Principals Association, along with myself and colleagues from the Program Department, Employee Relations and Human Resources, and Transportation. The calendar is established by committee consensus and in consultation with our coterminous boards. The calendar provided to you this evening on page 22 of the package, I would suggest to trustees is pre-COVID non-election year calendar. So trustees may recall pre-COVID where we were not required to have professional activity days before Labor Day for staff, and in a non-election year where we don't worry about locating a professional activity day on election day, we develop a calendar that distributes our mandated provincial priorities, professional activity days throughout semester 1 and semester 2 to allow for the development of our school improvement plans and then regular check-ins on those plans, as well as days that are mandated by both collective agreement and ministry requirement. So the calendar is there for you on page 22, represents 194 instructional days per ministry requirement, 187 of them teacher and student in class together days. And that concludes my report. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Superintendent Peel. Trustee Stefano Pascucci, please.
Thank you, Bruno. Through you, Mr. Chairman. So quick question. It obviously hasn't happened because I think this last year was the first year we actually did a PA day during an election time. If an election is called, let's say the federal government falls, the provincial government falls, is there any provision in there? Like what can things be shifted around if needed?
So through the chair, thank you for the question. At this time, we don't actually have the ministry memo mandating the creation of our 23-24 school year calendar. So we are working on previous memos and PPMs, expecting that the ministry memo will come shortly, knowing that the due date is March 1st. But to respond to the trustee's question, we always have the opportunities to submit amendments for approval to the Ministry of Education. We have, in fact, last year, we had our calendar pretty much prepared when the ministry came out with mandate that we should have a provincial priorities day on the election day. So boards were required to submit a modification to their school year calendar. So there is always the option for that.
Thank you. And sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman, did I hear you correctly that we haven't received direction yet from the ministry on our calendar?
That is correct. Typically, depending on the year, that's okay. Through the chair, typically we've received it by now. We are in communication with the ministry's office as we prepare the calendar, as we consult with our coterminous boards. So we've been assured there are no unforeseen requirements with regards to our calendars this year. So we proceeded based on, quite frankly, my knowledge of what we've had to do in the past and the PPMs that have come before. Should something unexpected or untoward appear in the ministry memo, you will see me again at a committee meeting in your future asking for modifications to the school year calendar. But based on our conversations with the ministry contact, we don't anticipate that will be the case.
And through the
Yes, my
chair, if I
question.
may, the reason that it's coming forward tonight, Trustee Pascucci, is that it needs board of approval. So that's February board, and there's a March 1st submission deadline. So it's basically a timeline piece.
Thank you. And just trying to figure out, like, how can they expect us to do something on March 1st if they haven't even given us direction yet? So I don't know how we can even approve this for submission to the Ministry of Education if we don't know what they want.
So through the chair, if I may, we've had, I have had numerous conversations with our contact at the ministry about school year calendar and the memo. We've been assured that it is on the minister's desk awaiting approval and signature. I asked very specific questions about any new guidelines that would be forthcoming via PPM or memo, and I was assured there would not be. As Associate Director Emerald indicated, the due date for submission to the ministry is March 1st. Counting backwards from March 1st, understanding this needs to go to board, we're bringing it this evening for approval, understanding, as I said, if something unexpected or untoward comes from the ministry, then I will come back and we'll have to make modifications. I'm cognizant of the March 1st deadline, specifically because at the school year calendar committee, one of the points raised by the parent representing elementary parents from CSAC asked that we have a sort of a directed and targeted campaign to make sure once the calendar is approved, that it is shared with parents as far in advance as possible. So cognizant of the March 1st deadline, understanding that the ministry approves them, the calendars that are submitted by the deadline before they look at anything else, and understanding the need for parents to know when PA days are and when Christmas holidays are, I'm feeling a little bit of pressure to submit this to the ministry by March 30th, or sorry, by March 1st, and then make amendments if and as necessary.
And through the chair, from a process and procedural perspective, should there be any amendments that can be brought to the board meeting as well as an amended report for final approval to submission to the Ministry of Education.
And David, we've had reports come back where dates have been changed last year as well. So it's not going to be new.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct.
No, and thank you. And it's just, when somebody tells me to go do something and they don't tell me what they want me to do, it causes more work on our own staff. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Tammy Lynn. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Trustee Pascucci. Seeing no other questions, moved by Sean Xavier that the Faith and Program Committee recommend to the Board of Trustees that the 2023-2024 school year calendar be approved for submission to the Ministry of Education. Any opposed? Carried.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. No notice of motions, no additional business. Questions asked of and by. Trustee Corbett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, good evening, everyone, again. Just wanted to ask a question regarding power outages at a school prior to the school day starting. And if I may just provide some context around this situation that we had on Friday, February 10th at one of my schools, Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Mississauga North. Just to give you an idea, we know power outages happen. We know there's not a lot that we can do to control them. We know that there's lots of staff working behind the scenes to resolve them. So by no means is this critical of the situation happening. But what I do want to bring to your attention and hopefully resolve and have some learning opportunities for next time is a few issues. So in this particular case, power outage was known by 7:50 or sooner, but that's when it was brought to my attention. School bell time at a secondary school is 8:17. So about half an hour before bell time. And communication wasn't sent from the board to the parents until 9:06. So well into first period. So I'm a parent of this school community as well. So I got a lot of calls, I got a lot of complaints, I got a lot of emails, not about the outage. The issue was that the outage had occurred before the school started, and there was a delay in communication. And then there was absolute utter chaos. So secondary school, large secondary school, thousands of students to mobilize in and out. So what happened was lots of confusion. Nobody had a plan. Parents didn't know what was happening. Students didn't know what was happening. Staff didn't know what was happening at the school. So the plan was apparently to do a safe entry. I'm not sure what that is, what that looks like, but what I can tell you is inside a school, it's very dark, especially in classrooms that are in the basement that have no windows, washrooms that have no windows, very dark. I don't feel in that situation, if you don't have power at the start of the school day, that it's safe to reopen, but that's my personal opinion. But in this case, we had a power outage half an hour before the bell time. And what happened was some teachers were telling the kids as they were arriving to go home as soon as they got there, saying school is going to be closed, even though it officially wasn't. We had some teachers telling the students to stay, although it was optional, but they said stay because we were told we're going to wait it out. And then we had some teachers telling students, go home, but come back at 11. I have no idea where that time came from. Some students, as they're entering the school, are being told by other students leaving the school, saying there's no school. Parents are dropping off at the same time as parents are getting a call to come pick up. All of this to say there wasn't any communication from the board to tell parents what was happening. And I think the most confusing part, and probably the most concerning part, is that we had a students' council social media account that was posting the school was closed, attendance is not going to be taken. And I don't think they're the official spokesperson for the board. Streets were congested, as you can imagine, thousands of students not knowing what's going on. And while the communication should have come out sooner, I actually think the school should not have been allowed to open in the first place. So my question through the chair is, I know we have a policy where our director is able to close a school or not open a school, but is there a time frame included in that policy that says half an hour before, an hour before? Obviously if it happens at the same time as school's supposed to open, then that's a different situation. But where we have time, like half an hour or more, and we know we don't have power, is there a time frame that's been embedded in that policy that helps guide this decision, so it's less of a wait and see and more of a we call it now, to make it easier?
Director Mazzarato?
Appreciate the concern, Trustee Corbett, and also that you're bringing those concerns forward to us. Yes, there is a policy, but one of the challenges with a power outage, and we've experienced this a number of times, power can go out and it can come back on shortly. And in many schools, they could actually do without power for a considerable amount of time. And our position is to always try as much as possible to keep our schools open. And I know it's a difficult call. And that's what we were struggling with that morning, was if we made the call and then the power comes back on in half an hour, then we've basically closed the school for all students for the day. And we want to try and avoid doing that. So, but I appreciate the concerns that you've brought forward around, in this particular case, it was because it was during the arrival time. Typically, other situations where we've lost power, students are in school, right? We're able to control that situation. This happened to happen at a time. We understand that it happened before school started, but oftentimes we'll be told the power is out and it comes back on. So we will take back, though, the concerns that you have brought around this particular situation when we know that the power is out even before the students begin to arrive. Knowing that, though, if we make the call and we close it, and then the power comes on in half an hour, then we have parents and students frustrated that they've lost a whole day. But let us take that back and think about how we can maybe manage it better in future situations.
Through you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Director Mazzarato. I appreciate it. And I certainly understand the concern is you make the call, you close the school, and the power comes back on. But in this case, even if the power had come on even 10 minutes later, I'm telling you, it wouldn't have been effective. The students had already left. The students were being told to leave.
Well, and we will follow up around that. I mean, we will follow up in terms of the messaging. Yeah. Because the message did not come out from the board for the students to leave. So if others were taking it upon themselves to do that, we'll ensure that there's a clarifying message to staff that it is not their authority to dismiss students.
And through the chair, it's also not the authority of the student council social media account either. So I think there was a lot of mixed messaging. When there was no messaging, there was a lot of mixed messaging. And there was no consistency among staff. So depending on what class you were going to, but I honestly don't believe that it would have been safe to have waited it out in dark classes. I don't think that's safe or productive. And the washrooms are a consideration too, because there's no light there and no windows. So,
and you're right, and that was, that's where sometimes these decisions are very unique to the facilities as well. And the call was made because, in fact, of the way in which Mount Carmel's layout is. There's areas where it was very, very dark. But I would be concerned about changing a policy to indicate that if the power outage happens before school starts, that we automatically close a building, because there may be some buildings where we're still able to function as we wait out the power outage.
So through the chair, that might be a conversation to have with the school administrators, because I don't know if any school, elementary or secondary, would be able to safely conduct time without power before they open. I don't know if that's even manageable. Even some of the smaller elementary schools may only have one washroom for girls and one washroom for boys. So while this was a concern because of the volume of students to mobilize, I still think if it's even a case of a smaller elementary school, if you don't have power prior to opening, you don't open. I think it's just a health and safety thing. It's because I don't know how long you'd be able to manage before it comes back on, and then trying to have everyone organized to manage and then come back. If you're hesitant to put a time limit, I would still say, that half an hour before, if you don't have power before half an hour, I don't know if you'd be able to safely do that. At which point people are starting to leave to get to school. So I've provided my feedback. I've given you the situation around this particular case. Different when there's been power outages at a school and it's happened during the school day, of course. But this was significant, and I don't know at what point the power actually came on, but I don't think you would have been able to get the kids back at that point. So thank you for taking that back. I appreciate it. Appreciate the follow-up.
Thank you.
Thanks for the feedback. It'll certainly inform how we move forward in those kinds of situations, particularly before school starts.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, trustee Corbett. Thank you, Director Mazzarato. Any other questions? Trustee Pascucci, go ahead. Stefano, please.
Thank you. Sort of to trustee Bria Corbett's point, who controls the student council Twitter page?
Through the chair, I do believe it is the student council, but I can take that back and look at that.
Well, somebody overstepped their boundaries there.
Through the chair, yes.
I understand that, every tweet or every Instagram post, it would be very cumbersome for staff to look at it, but there has to be clear guidelines. It's either you use it properly or you lose it. Because we don't need to have mixed messages, especially from students who aren't in a decision-making capacity. Because any student council just say any day, school's closed. Time to go home. And that can't happen again. So if we can look into that as well, and I don't know what Director Mazzarato or yourself,
we'll take it back.
so Director Amaral, if you can look at that, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, trustee Pascucci. Thank you, Associate Director. And trustee Corbett, you have your hand up again
Yes,
for a
please.
question. Go ahead.
Through the chair, yes. It was just to clarify, trustee Pascucci was referencing the student Twitter account. It was, I didn't see it on the student Twitter, although it might have been. Where it was seen was on the OLMC Student Council Instagram, if that provides some information, and I'm happy to share it with the director if she wishes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Any declaration of interest? Don't see any. Move into in camera. It's only 8:15, so we'll go directly into in camera and do our business. Trustee Del Rosario, did I see your hand? A move into in camera. Moved by trustee Del Rosario. Any opposed? Carried. So just to be clear, we're going to be moved into camera, do our in-camera business, and then back out. Thank you.
So through the chair at this time, trustees and staff will be getting a invite to go in camera. I'm just verifying that the participants on the in-camera list are eligible to go inside. Please give me a second. Through the chair, I think we are ready to go.
Okay.
Through the chair, you're muted. Mr. Chair, you're muted.
Let me just go back to.
Yep, here you go.
This. During the in-camera meeting of the February 14th meeting of the Faith and Program Committee, the minutes of the in-camera meeting of January 24th were approved.
And we received question of an in-camera nature as well.
And we did receive a question of an in-camera nature. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Any, well, I guess we can move adjournment. Moved by trustee Stefano Pascucci. Any opposed? Carried. Happy Valentine's Day to each and every one of you. I hope you and your.
And same to you, and
Great.
enjoy.
Good night, everybody.
Take care. Good night.
Good night, everyone.